Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of our AM Minnesota program. In studio, we have a sergeant from the Northfield Police Department, Kevin Tussing, and he's brought with him a guest who is in the reserves. Eli Sidlow is with us as well this morning on our AM Minnesota program. Sergeant, thanks for coming on.
Good morning, Gordy. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. I know that you had called and said, we're having some trouble getting some reserves, and we'd like to get the word out that we're looking for more reserves.
Correct. We're in a recruiting period. We usually do this once a year. We're sitting at about 23 members on our volunteer police reserves. We'd like to be up to around the 35 figure. So, yeah, we're doing a big push here in the month of February. We have applications that are open till the 27th of this month. So,
end of next week.
Correct. And those that are interested can get an application either online through the City of Northfield's website or at City Hall.
Do you have any age requirements?
Minimum age of 19, no maximum age requirement. We do have a couple of our members that are, I would say, over 60 years of age, so that are very active with our program.
And, of course, men and women are welcome.
Correct. We have a very diverse makeup of the organization with men and women on the group. So,
do you know what the breakout is?
I said out of the 23 members, we probably have 5 or 6, 7 female reserve officers out of the group and stuff, so which is very beneficial. We've had some bilingual members on our organization, which is always beneficial and helpful to the police department also. So.
Sure, I would bet. I mean, if you can't communicate with people, it's kind of tough on a call.
That is correct, and we pride ourselves on our communicating ability with the citizens of Northfield and those people that are traveling through.
Sergeant Tussing used to be the police chief in Dundas. Used to come on the show a few times.
Correct. I worked for the city of Dundas for about 7 years, police chief for 3.5, 4 years, and I had left the city of Dundas back in 2003 to come and work full-time for Northfield, which I previously worked part-time for.
Do you miss being a police chief? I mean, the head guy?
It was a good learning experience. I learned a lot of stuff from the city of Dundas, the city council members there, and it gave me a big leg up on some other police officers getting to see that aspect of the job. And Dundas was treated me very well, and the officers that worked there, including their current police chief, worked for us full-time when I was the chief, and a good bunch of officers there that we had.
Eli, are you from Northfield originally?
Yes, I am.
Because I know we were chatting before going on the air. You're a student currently at Minnesota State Mankato.
Correct. I'm a senior there.
Majoring in law enforcement, I would assume?
That I am.
Why do you want to be a cop?
Why do I want to be a cop? One of the biggest reasons is just to work with the community, to be a positive influence, and to really just force a positive respect for law enforcement and make a difference.
Is that what you wanted to do, Kevin, when you started?
That sounded like the typical response we got from a lot of young people, including myself. You always want to help people, and
sure.
If you get into this profession and you don't want to help people, it's a bad profession to be in. And sometimes we do see candidates in our reserve program or people going into law enforcement that think it's all about pursuits and chasing the bad guys and exciting stuff like that, and that you're not going to have a very long career if that's your mentality of what this job's about.
You come from a law enforcement family, Eli?
I do not, actually. First, my family to go towards law enforcement.
That's interesting. What do your folks do?
My father is a retired air traffic controller.
Okay.
Both my parents were music majors out of college, actually.
Isn't that interesting? Music major becomes air traffic controller.
And I've met Eli's parents, good people, and Eli had received a Reserve Officer of the Year award last year.
Way to go, Eli.
Thank you.
I got to meet his parents for the first time then. Good people. So,
how do you receive that award? I mean, what's it for?
We have the Reserve Officer of the Year award going back to when I used to be a Reserve Officer myself back in the early 90s, and I actually got the privilege of receiving it myself. And for several years, the award went away. It used to be called the Haynes Cook Award after Haynes Cook, which I believe he was one of the original Northfield emergency management directors and got the reserve program going. And then I took over the reserve program here in Northfield a few years ago from Sergeant Mark Murphy, and who's now retired, and decided, it was a good way to recognize quality performers on our volunteer unit. So I brought the award back. We lost the Haynes Cook name, but we just kept the concept, and several things go into it. Matt Paulson, who's one of our sergeants, just received the award yesterday at our department's recognition luncheon. It goes total hours volunteered for the year, life-saving efforts that may have been made during the year, availability called in. We had a shooting robbery last summer, and Matt and I believe Eli himself were both available to come in late at night. So there are a lot of big makeups that receive that award.
All right, we're going to get more on that story. That sounds interesting. When AM Minnesota continues, right now we're going to get that opening market report. We don't have just any reserve member in here. We got an award-winning reserve member. Can you relate to us what happened when Sergeant Tussing was telling us some event happened, an armed robbery or something?
This was the shooting in Northfield that happened this past summer. Robbery on the street. I got called in by some of the officers around 1 in the morning. Got another sergeant, reserve sergeant, and we ended up working a traffic detail, working a perimeter detail of the scene as the officers processed the evidence and took photos of the scene. So it was definitely an interesting situation.
It was a learning experience.
Very much so.
And so this is what he got the award for?
That was part of it. It's a makeup of, we take everything into account. Peers, they have a chance to vote for who they think should get it.
Sure.
I look at total stats. I talk to officers. So it's kind of a makeup of a lot of things. So we've had 3 award winners now. Eli, like I said, Matt Paulson just received the award yesterday, one of our sergeants. Matt's like 6'10", so he stands out.
Oh, wow.
Stands out on our program. And then our captain, Steve Moses, who puts in lots of countless hours to the organization, received it 3 years ago. So,
how long have you been a reserve, Eli?
Almost 3 years now. This summer I'll be at 3 years.
Like it?
I love it. It's a fantastic program. I've gotten just an extreme amount of experience. Additionally, it's something really nice that I can put on my resume.
Because it doesn't pay a penny, right?
Unfortunately, no.
They get reimbursed for gas or anything?
When they're working an event, they get to use the city vehicles that we have, the unmarked vehicles. But as far as to their house and to the event, no, they don't get reimbursed for that at all.
They get their uniforms, I hope.
We supply shirts and pants and jackets and collar brass badges and things. There is some expense depending on what they want on their duty belt. They are allowed to carry handcuffs, which again is out of their pocket. We supply pepper spray, which is their only defensive tactics tool that they carry with them to protect themselves. They don't carry tasers, they don't carry a baton, certainly don't carry a firearm. We do provide some training with familiarity, though, with those items, some of those items, because once a month we have a meeting, third Monday of every month, where we try to put on training for them, things that are beneficial to make them a better reserve, plus things that might be just fun, that, as far as law enforcement aspect, what they may want to learn about. So it's a very good program. And we've got a mix of people, not only law enforcement students, but just community members. And that's actually a little bit what I'm trying to target, is trying to get just some local folk that want to help out their community and see what the police department's all about. Sometimes we get a lot of negative publicity.
Sure.
And it's like, come and work with us. Ride along with us. Work some of these other security details, help keep the kids safe when we work our high school football games or the high school or college hockey games that the reserves provide security for. I'm trying to target some of our just local community members that want to get involved, not just law enforcement students.
So you get to watch a hockey game for free?
I do. It's wonderful.
I guess I get to kind of do that too now that I think about it. But that does sound like a good deal.
It is, and the reserves in general is just a fantastic opportunity, especially for someone in my shoes where I'm going into law enforcement. It not only gives me experience, but I get to actually see what the work environment is like. And in law enforcement, that's really hard to get that perspective. So anyone who's interested in going into law enforcement or just even knowing what happens in their hometown, this is just a fantastic opportunity.
The biggest challenge is probably the weather.
Generally, yeah. The weather does get bad at times.
I mean, if it's a driving rain and you got to outdo traffic detail, you do traffic detail in the driving rain.
Very true. Fortunately, there are officers who are trained for that type of thing, and I'm generally in the passenger seat, so I don't have to worry too much about it.
St. Old Christmas Festival, though. Usually it's 5, 10 below, and they're out there directing traffic up on the hill. for 4 hours, 5 hours. So, and they want usually 14 reserves up there every night. So those officers that are working that detail, it usually takes its toll the weather-wise. We provide our command van where they get a warm-up in. Quick Trip is usually fantastic at providing donations as far as cookies and hot chocolate and stuff like that to keep those officers warm, and so they definitely appreciate that. So yeah, they get some bad weather sometimes to work in.
The crowds up there are incredible, aren't they?
They usually have a full house every year, every event, Thursday through Sunday up there. So. And I know we've been hurting the last couple of years getting them their full numbers that they want, but we've been able to, it seems like the last couple of years, traffic flow has gone surprisingly easy up there. They put a roundabout in there on top of the hill. And
don't get me going on that.
That seemed to help a lot, though, for that purpose.
I hate roundabouts.
The only one within Northfield city limits, I believe, so.
It's at the top of the hill there at St. Olaf, right on the campus.
Yeah, right, coming off of Highway 18 there, yep.
But that's not such a bad deal, but, semis don't have to try to navigate that.
No. Worst one I've ever been in was in Green Bay, and they had a roundabout that was like 4 or 5 lanes. And I was in the middle section of it and trying to get to a gas station, and it was scary.
4 or 5 lanes?
Yes, in a roundabout.
I thought the 2-lane one in Mankato was dangerous.
Yes, I got hawked at, I believe, trying to get out of it. So
I can imagine.
Can you imagine that, really?
Lanes? In Mankato, there are 3 different roundabouts now. I believe, at least. But 5 lanes? That's incredible.
That's nuts, is what that is.
Only one that I've seen like it. So, but it's in Green Bay, so.
That tells you something, doesn't it? Sorry, all you Packer fans out there. Again, Sergeant Kevin Tussing from the Northfield Police Department. Northfield Police Reserve Officer Extraordinaire Eli Sidlow are in studio today. By the way, Shelley Rockman will be visiting with us from the South Central College Foundation tomorrow. We'll find out how their fundraising is going for South Central College. You brought with you some numbers. Is this the number of reserves you've had over the years?
This was our roster at some point last year. You can see, Gordy, the yellow are people that have moved on.
Right.
But it gives Eli does a wonderful job in preparing stats for me for the year, and just life-saving for me. But the reserves last year put in 3,055 hours, I believe.
Got your calculator there, Eli?
Of volunteer time.
That's a total of event hours that they've worked. Their ride-along hours, which is where they're working one-on-one with an officer. Oftentimes we're in full uniform, and so the officers actually ask us to help out with a number of different things. And also it's our meeting hours and our administration type hours.
I'm guessing the biggest event for you is Defeat of Jesse James Days.
Yes, our 2 biggest events of the year are Jesse James Days and the St. Olaf Christmas Festival. They're both very interesting to work.
And extremes in terms of temperature.
It is.
You can have a warm Defeat of Jesse James Days.
We've had lots of medicals on Parade Day Sunday where it's been 90 degrees out there, and then we've had the other end where it's 50 degrees and raining, and we're freezing our butts off out there. So,
right.
But the reserves are just a godsend when it comes to traffic control on the Parade Day. Without them, we wouldn't be able to cover every intersection that we do. And just that extra visibility when we can throw out 10 light blue uniforms, and that's what they wear and separate us from them, is they wear the light blue shirts, we wear the navy shirts. And just that extra visible presence helps deter a lot of activity that weekend. And I always say that it seems like Defeat of Jesse James Days call load is always less for us than on a normal weekend. And I think it's because of that visible presence.
Yeah. Well, and everybody's at the parade.
Everyone's having a good time at the parade, yep. So, missing the Vikings opener usually, but at the parade, so.
That's okay.
With their history, yeah.
I mean, now. They may be getting better.
We can only hope.
They're on the rise, supposedly, so. We'll see what happens with our roster next year and with AP if he's back or not, but.
I was just thinking of how much money this saves Northfield taxpayers.
And I don't look at the end of the aspect of what's the total cost. We look at just minimum wage and, what the city's getting for free costs. And usually there's no budget for the reserve. It comes out of the police department budget, so it's not an extra budget that they're getting. They don't have a separate account. So we use, the uniforms aren't purchased as often as, say, as officers are. So, yeah, we do get by. In the past, we've gotten donations back when I was a reserve for radios, for body armor, and the reserves are always still hurting for body armor. We're still trying to come up with fundraising ideas that the reserves can legally do to raise money to purchase body armor. Because right now, if they want a bulletproof vest, they have to pretty much buy it themselves.
And how much is a bulletproof vest?
They're expensive. They can go anywhere from, I think, minimum, the low end, $600 up to over $1,000. So
we are lucky enough to have many officers who end up donating their ballistic vests. Our retired Sergeant Mark Murphy.
That was very nice.
He actually donated his to me, and so I'm very happy to have that. And I'm a big advocate of always wearing a vest if you're in uniform.
I'd rather be safe than sorry.
So it is something. They do have a lifespan, those vests. They do expire after, and that's usually why we get new ones as officers, and then we donate our used ones to them typically. So, but it's becoming more and more dangerous out there.
So if anybody listening out there is interested or thinks maybe their grandchild or their kid might be interested, they just get a hold of you, Kevin?
They can get a hold of me. My direct line is 507-663-9471 at the office. With this current application period, they can just go online to the City of Northfield's website and download an application after they've printed it off and stuff and drop it off at City Hall. We are going up until the 27th. If I have a low turnout, we may extend the deadline. But it's just a great program. They get involved with foot patrol, ride-alongs, skywarning spotting, security at different events throughout the city. So it's a fun program. I learned a lot from the officers I rode with growing up and stuff when I was 19. And I'm still learning and stuff. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. And if people just have general questions, you're not really sure if you want to join, or we didn't cover something today that you might want to know about, just give me a call. Typically, I work 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. I am on my days off right now, but I'll be back to work on Saturday.
All right. Again, that phone number is 663-9471.
Correct, and that's the number to my desk.
663-9471. How did you find out about the reserves, Eli? Were you recruited or what?
I was actually recruited by a retired Sergeant Murphy. He and I had gone back several years, and when I became interested in law enforcement, he said that I should come in. I did a ride-along with him. He and I talked about it a lot. I put in an application, and I got hired.
So you still want to do this?
Absolutely.
After being involved for a few years and realizing it's not quite as glamorous as some might think.
If anything, that increases the appeal a little bit. It's more realistic, more nitty-gritty. I mean, you get to see all aspects of how things operate, and you see a very different side of the world that a lot of people don't.
I mean, let's be honest, Sergeant Tussing, it's not like the crime shows you see on television.
Definitely not. And we do have some members that join and do ride-alongs and think that's what it's going to be about, and then they see what Northfield's really like. And as somebody that lives in the community, you don't want to see what it's like on TV. You want it to be boring, and for the most part, it is most of the time. But we've got a bunch of proactive officers that are out there doing bar walkthroughs, foot patrolling downtown, so stuff to keep them busy, And we're not just out there driving around in circles and writing speeding tickets. There's a lot more to the job than that. So,
yeah. Well, one thing, you don't have a jail in Northfield, right?
Correct. We have temporary interview rooms that could be used for a few minutes, but if we need to jail somebody, they have to come down here to the jail at the sheriff's office in Faribault.
Right. So that's one thing you don't have to worry about.
Correct.
Is running a jail.
Correct. We do have to fingerprint people. We do book people, and then we run them down to the jail if it's somebody that's getting held in custody for court.
So if you had a recommendation for somebody who may be interested in being a reserve, what would it be? Body armor, you just said you like bulletproof vests. That's probably a good idea.
I'm a big advocate for tactical decision-making. So, I mean, if you can take any precaution to protect yourself, absolutely do it. But the reserves are also a big public relations tool. We do a lot of work with the community, working different hockey games, working all the big events. We're the ones who are dealing with a lot of lost kids get reported to us. A lot of people see us as police,
sure,
despite our uniforms being slightly different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great for the community. It's great for just getting to know the community and the city.
You've had to break up a fight or two, I would expect, at a hockey game or something?
I've assisted officers, actually Sergeant Tussing here. Worked with him in one hockey game.
Usually we'll have not the main MIAC game, but we'll have the club teams, St. Olaf and Carleton, play once a year. And that usually gets a little heated sometimes in the fans there. So, we've had to break up a couple fights right in front of me even. Sometimes you start drinking a little bit and your decision-making goes out the window. So, but the reserves, for the most part, aren't expected to get involved in breaking up fights or arresting people. They're there as kind of our eyes and ears, and typically they're trained. They are trained to protect themselves if needed, but typically they're trained to observe and report and keep themselves safe and let us do the hands-on work.
So if, just this example, if there's a fight that breaks out and you witness this, you don't try and step in. You call Sergeant Tussing or somebody and say, hey, we got a fight over here.
Correct. Luckily, the times that I have been near fights that have broken out, there has been an officer there, and so I'm just an extra uniform that stands offset from them, and generally people pick up on that.
But I'm guessing that's pretty rare.
Yeah, it is pretty rare, Gordy. And if they do something, they can yell, hey, break up the fight. They don't necessarily ID themselves as police officers, but obviously the uniform gives that kind of presence, officer presence anyways. So by them just kind of from a distance saying, hey, stop fighting, that usually breaks up the fight, disperses, people see that and take off running.
I was reading a story this morning on the wire, and I can't remember I think it was New Jersey. Some drunk driver put water on the road after he got in an accident so that he could tell the officer he hit the black ice.
I saw that headline. I didn't read the article, though.
Okay, but this guy was drunk. He was, 21 years old. You must have a humorous story. You don't have to mention names or anything, but there must have been something over the years. I thought that was kind of bizarre. Some guys will try anything,
I'm trying to think. I once got accused of letting a pet alligator crocodile thing out of a house once, and then it got ran over on the highway.
Oh, no.
That was back in the Dundas days. Of course, I wasn't involved with that, but, I'm sure that we've.
Is it legal to keep a pet alligator?
It's not.
I didn't think so.
It's not. It's usually covered by city ordinances.
Yeah. Exotic animals or something.
Usually things like that aren't covered in most cities. So, but I've come across some weird stuff over the years. Unfortunately, nothing that comes to the top of my head right now. So
no, that's okay. But I just thought it'd be something worth asking, because you never know, you might get a real humorous story out of it.
You do definitely get some stories, even on ride-alongs. You've seen some stuff. Again, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but you definitely see a different side of the world.
Well, you see a lot of people who have imbibed a little too much, and how behavior.
Yeah. And sometimes people call and report weird stuff. We recently had somebody wanting to report a problem with their pizza order. And for some reason they called the police department looking for our help, because they think the police, which is great that they want our help and they think we can help, but sometimes we get some interesting stories when people do report some things like, really? And then we get other times where they don't report instances where we're going, why didn't you call? It happens a lot.
They ordered tomatoes and didn't get any on their pizza or something.
So, you just scratch your head sometimes. But we're there to help no matter what.
You really do. So how's that new building working out?
We love it. We're very grateful to the citizens of Northfield for allowing us that opportunity to move into there, compared to what we used to have, both for health reasons and for just convenience sake of getting our job done and doing a better job and keeping our equipment lasting longer, our squad cars in the garage there. And it's a great building. We love it and stuff. So we've had several chances to give tours to the public, and we're very grateful of that opportunity to be in there.
Hot topic at the legislature these days, not just our state legislature, but all over the country, is body cameras and whether officers should wear those. You must have thoughts on that.
Correct. We currently at Northfield do have a couple body cameras that we've been testing out for a couple of years now. It's something that we want. But due to cost levels of not necessarily the equipment, but sometimes the storage and some of those things, we're still researching the topic along with other agencies within Rice County. It's something we'll have, hopefully, for all of our officers someday, whether it's a year from now or 2-3 years from now, I'm not sure. But it's something that we definitely want. Those officers that do use the body cameras that we do have, love them. We've also upgraded our cameras in our squad cars recently. We went to a product called WatchGuard, which is what the State Patrol uses, and we love those cameras. High definition. It protects not only the citizens but the officers themselves against false allegations that sometimes happen, and it's great for court and should hopefully reduce court appearances. Usually when there's video or there's audio, that paints a clearer picture. It used to be you could trust what the officer had to say when it was he said versus she said, and that's not necessarily the case anymore. And if we can have any evidence, if possible, like videos, it helps us in several different ways.
Yeah, that Ferguson, Missouri debacle kind of forced the hand in this issue, don't you think?
The issue in Missouri, the issue in New York and stuff, most definitely. And in law enforcement, like I said, I went into this profession to help people. I didn't go in here to falsely arrest people or falsely use deadly force against people. I need to go home safely at the end of the night, along with my partners, along with our reserve officers. And sometimes we have to make choices that we don't want to make, but we have to protect ourselves and the citizens. But, those situations force the hand a little bit, but there has been departments out there looking at body cameras now for quite some time, well before the Ferguson, Missouri incident. So.
And that's probably the part of the job you don't like the most, right?
Correct. I pride myself in not having to use force. For years, I could say that, every year of not having to wrestle with anybody or, never having to use my baton, never having to use my pepper spray, never having to use my firearm. I've had to use my taser on a few different occasions, but I pride myself in being able to talk to people. I'm one of our crisis intervention trained officers dealing with people in need, whether it's mental health issues, suicidal type issues, things like that. So I pride myself, and I know every officer on our department also does that. So, all
right, thanks, Kevin, for coming in.
Thank you, Cody. Appreciate having us.
Meeting you, Eli.
Nice meeting you too.
Best of luck in your future law enforcement career. It sounds like you're off to a very good start.
I certainly hope so.
And it's something I know I could never, ever do. That concludes today's edition of AM Minnesota on KDHLAM Faribault, Minnesota.